Hello, I'm Collette Prince and welcome to Digitize Your Biz, a show that speaks all things digital and business. With the digital space being highly active right now and businesses spending a lot more time to find different ways to boost their visibility and sales, we are now left with the simple question: how are we able to tell if our efforts are effective and are actually working? In studio with me today to discuss digital targets and key performance indicators is Derek Niemann, Quant Director of Data and Analytics at Algorithm Agency. Derek, welcome.
Hi.
So just simply, what is KPIs and what does it mean?
So essentially, KPIs, also known as key performance indicators, at a very high level are measures of success. So it's what we use to kind of determine whether what we are doing actually works or not. I'm going to refer to my slides here, but essentially there's three elements that we need to understand when it comes to KPIs. So the first one of those is kind of the broader objectives. So what are you trying to achieve as a business? These generally start off as kind of broad business objectives, which quite often end up being driving revenue, driving profits, but they might translate into specific digital objectives as well. So as an example, an e-commerce website might have an objective of increasing online sales. Quite straightforward. A step lower from that is the actual KPI, which is a measure that we use to see whether we are actually impacting it or not. So to look back at our e-commerce website example, their specific KPIs, the key performance indicators, might be the actual number of transactions or the conversion rate, the percentage of people who actually make a purchase after coming to the website. So those are the actual KPIs, the measures themselves. A level down from that is our targets, which is basically our numerical value that we need to hit in order to achieve those targets. So those are the three components essentially of a KPI.
And why are KPIs specifically for digital marketing really integral?
So it comes down essentially to growth of your business. So by being able to measure whether what we are doing works or not, we are able to kind of much better drive the business, focus on what's having impact, and grow the business as a result. You can think of it kind of like a roadmap in a sense. If kind of where we're going isn't right and things aren't working, we need to change direction, and KPIs help us to do that. Without them, we're kind of driving blind, just doing as much as possible, not knowing what's actually working and what's not.
And sticking to this roadmap analogy that you used, why are setting KPIs, especially for your digital marketing strategy, important, and what are the benefits of doing so?
So again, one of those key benefits is that growth. It allows you to be much more focused than you would normally be. One of the kind of normal approaches to marketing is doing as much as possible and hoping that something sticks. KPIs allow you to narrow down that focus to focus specifically on what is working and what's not. Get rid of the fluff and do what you need to drive your objectives.
And what are some of the KPIs that a business needs to realistically consider when implementing this into their business?
So, interesting question. It varies very much from business to business. So it depends on what you want to achieve as a business. Again, using our e-commerce example, someone with an e-commerce website might have wildly different objectives to someone who's trying to grow a social audience and generate some engagement with that audience. So the key thing here is that you kind of work back from that objective, use your business objective as a starting point, and use that to map down into specific KPIs. So always tie back to what you're trying to achieve as a business, and that will kind of dictate the specific KPIs that you might need. And just to kind of jump back to my slides here, just as an example, a whole bunch of different objectives. Each one of them has a variety of different KPIs that you might select. So if you're driving online sales, again, transactions or conversion rate might be important. Lead generation, you might want to have a look at the number of leads, the cost per lead, how well those leads are converting within your call center. From a customer retention point of view, you might have more of an importance on people coming back to your website or the lifetime value of that customer. So very, very, very dependent on what you are trying to achieve and what your business objectives are.
And just breaking down the fundamentals like you just have, and basically explaining on a measurable and a quantifiable way for a business to kind of see if their efforts are or their energies are being spent in the right space. How can SMEs then start out setting the right targets and KPIs?
So there is a process, and I'm again referring to my slides here, that we can follow to kind of make sure that we're actually doing the right thing here. And again, to my point earlier, always start off with your broader business objectives. Start off with what you're trying to achieve. Quite often this is tied to driving revenue, driving profit, but that might translate into very specific digital KPIs. So your digital objectives might be to generate awareness, to kind of get people aware of you as a brand. It might be to increase sales, it might be to generate leads. So kind of creating that link is crucial. Once you've got that, you can identify what specific measures you might need to put in place against each one of those targets. And that it can be a variety of things, as mentioned before. Once we've got that measure, the next bit is actually setting those targets, which is crucial. You need to make sure that you've got, firstly, accurate and achievable targets in place. And targets can be a bit tricky. So the default approach is to thumbsuck a number and hope for the best and aim for that, which quite often doesn't work. You either overachieve that by quite a big margin, or you fail to hit your targets and you look horrible. So where possible, it's nice to use industry benchmarks to look at your competitors to see what they are achieving. The problem with this is that some of the most useful and most important KPIs tend to be based on private data. So as we know, a lot of what happens in digital is kind of data that you collect yourself. We're never going to have an idea of what our competitors might be driving from a revenue perspective or transactions. So that's not always a viable option. So what we generally tend to suggest is that you benchmark against yourself as much as possible. So have a look at your current performance, have a look at your past performance, and use that to kind of map potential growth. If you're currently hitting 100 leads per month on your website, you might want to hit 150, and that will be kind of the target that you set against that.
Derek, I'm just going to pause
Sure.
you right there. We'll be right back with more on KPIs and targets and why it's an integral process for your digital marketing strategy. Stay tuned.